And no, that is not my son. That's me. 59 years ago. And it took me a long time to realize the only person I could be looking at to make me smile like that, oh man, my mom, Betty Jean. Those eyes and that smile could either melt your heart or turn you into a pillar of salt. I had both experiences. Sony spent $100 million on marketing that film. In every place that Will Smith and I went all around the world, I talked about my mother. The wit, the wisdom, the lessons of love that she shared with me made everything else I've ever done in my life possible. Whenever I am asked, whatever made you think that you could accomplish half of the things that you have in your life, I can hear my mom's voice. I can hear mom saying, son, I've had to do so much and so little for so long, I could do anything or nothing. And that wasn't just something catchy to say. I saw it do it. The film is often been referred to as the ultimate rags to riches story. But for me, it was never about money. For me, it was a love story about a man who was committed to giving his child something that he never had, which was a father. And that's priceless. I'm also often asked, how do you choose between doing what's practical and what you're passionate about? My answer is not popular. My answer is sometimes you've got to do both. And doing both can mean doing what you've got to do before you can do what you want to do. I have to share a few stories with you about my mom and others who helped create my spiritual genetics, and it's so incredible to me. During some of the most empowering moments of your life, no matter how long ago it happened, you can remember it like it happened this morning. I will never forget being a young guy getting ready to watch a college basketball game. It's the NCAA Final Four. A school came out of nowhere to challenge my favorite team, the UCLA Bruins. UCLA, under the then coach John Wooden, have won numerous championships the previous few years. The announcer is hyping this game. He's talking about all the money some of these players are going to make simply because they can run and jump and catch a ball. And I said out loud, talking to no one, I said to the television, wow, one day that guy's going to make $1 million. Thank God my mama heard me say that. Mama heard me say, she said, son, you know what, if you want to, one day you can make $1 million. Until she said those words, the thought never entered my mind. But after she said it, the thought never left my mind. That has become part of my spiritual genetics. And again, I've wondered many, many times, my mother had too many of her own dreams denied, deferred, or destroyed. Again, we're talking about the daughter of a sharecropper raised deep in the heart of Louisiana, 1930s, 1940s. Those were not the good old days by any stretch of the imagination. There's a scene in the film that reflects what I'm trying to share with you. As we ultimately saw it on the screen, it was not originally written that way. The scene takes place on the basketball court. In the original screenplay, when that little boy throws up the ball and says, I'm going pro, the father says, forget it. That would never happen. I was so good at it, so that means that you can't do it. I waited until we were going to film that scene that day, and I went up to Will Smith and I said, you can't tell that to that little boy. But that's not what my mama told me. We had a very intense discussion about it. Me, Will Smith, our director, Gabriel Machino, and one of the producers. The producer's position was, well, the father's got to keep it real with the kids. My position was, man, you live in Hollywood. What you know about keeping it real? We had a very intense discussion, and after 30 minutes, it was Will Smith who said, you know what? Chris is right, because my mom told me the same thing. We tore up the original script, and this was the result. Doesn't matter. You know why? Because I wrote that thing. I can tell you exactly I can tell you exactly what's happening. The little boy says, I'm going pro. And the father says, don't ever let me hear you say that. Then he thinks about it a second and he says, you know what? Hold up a minute. Don't ever let somebody else tell you what you can't do. When other people are saying something can't be done, you've got to hear them saying that they can't do it. If you got a dream, you got to protect it. If you want something, go get it. Period. And since that day, I've had parents from all over the world say to me, I tell my little boy, I tell my little girl every day, don't ever let somebody else tell you what you can't do. My mother saying to me, son, you can do or be anything. Man, apparently I took it too far. I made in my mind, my first ambition in life, I made in my mind I was going to become Miles Davis. Mama said I could be anybody, I chose Miles. I studied music theory, I played trumpet for 9 years. I got pretty good. And when I say I wanted to become Miles Davis, man, I had it bad. I had it so bad, people would ask me as a little boy, what are you going to do when you grow up? I had it so bad, I started talking like Miles, and I tell them, I'm going to be Miles Davis. Thank God my mama heard me say it one time. Mama heard me say it, she said, son, we need to talk. We sat down at the kitchen table. I don't know how this worked at your house, but at our house, when you got called to the kitchen table, it was not supper time. That was not good news. That was kind of like going before the Supreme Court. A ruling was about to come down. We sat at the kitchen table, she said to me with all the love that only a mother could say, son, you're pretty good with that thing, but you can't do Miles Davis. There's only one, and you got that guy. And when your mom puts it to you like that, you got to feel that. And I have to look at the facts. The facts were, at 18 years of age, Miles Davis was in New York City playing with Quincy Jones and Dizzy Gillespie. At the same age, I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, playing with the boys named Pookie and Ray Ray. Hey, we were good, but it wasn't going to happen. But this goes back to earlier I mentioned. She had given me permission to dream. And what I knew was, all I got to do now is find that thing that turns me on as much as the music does. I talked about it in my last book, Start Where You Are. Finding your buddy. What is that one thing that turns you on so much the sun cannot come up soon enough in the morning because you want to go do your thing? Live and enjoy it. Live in curiosity. Find your buddy. I cannot tell anybody in here how to find your buddy, but I will say this. A lot of us already know. We're just afraid to push it. I would find out for 10 years until I met these two guys. Gary Shimon and Marshall Gellar. At this point in their career, they were both managing general partners at a magical place called Bear Stearns. I will never forget the very first time that I walked into a major Wall Street staging room. I knew, whoa, man, this is it. The ticket takers rolling, the phones ringing off the book. People are screaming and shouting out orders, bodies are flying all over the place, tickets are getting stamped. Well, it looked like chaos. And anybody else? For me, it was like I was dreaming of sweet music. And I could feel it. And I knew, this is where I'm supposed to be. Marshall and Gary as partners at Bear Stearns, what that meant was they loved each other and hated each other. To my knowledge, they never agreed on anything except me. I was hired because they both agreed this guy does not have an MBA, but he does have a PhD. And at Bear Stearns, that was the highest degree anybody could ever have. PhD. Poor, smart, with a deep desire to become wealthy. I was qualified. This was where I was supposed to be. It was not, I think I can do that. It was not, I'd like to try that. It was, this is where I'm supposed to be. The truth of the matter is, this is where I was. Man, I could stand here and talk about that one picture for a long time. I have never stood before anyone and said to them, you must do as I say in order to pursue happiness on your terms. All that I can do is share with people some of the steps that I had to take to getting from where I was to where I wanted to be. That photo, I could talk about it for a very long time. The very first time I met Will Smith, he asked me to come to his home for dinner. He said, bring the script, any notes you might have on it. I brought the script, I brought my notes, but more importantly, I brought that picture. My son and I, sitting on the stairs of the first home we got to live in, after living on the street, train station, bus terminal, hotel lobby, outside in the park at the weather permitted, Union Square, and yes, train station. My son and I, I'll never forget, every day I had to wash him up in the train station. There was a highly polished piece of sheet metal over the sink. It wasn't a mirror, but it served as a mirror. And I had to wash my son up every day, and I had to ask myself some very difficult questions. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? What's going to happen next? But you know what the hardest and the most brutal question that I had to ask and answer every day was? How did I get here? Let's live it in curves. How did I get here? The answer was even more brutal. The answer was, I drove here. I had something to do with the situations and circumstances that had become my life. I drove here. And there was something very empowering about that. Something very liberating about saying that, because I knew the second I said a road, well, if I drove here, then I can drive out of here. You can't change something until you own it. I drove here. I shared this story with my banker a few years ago. He talked about it for a moment, and he said to me, you know what, in business, some of us, we drove here too. My banker's name is Jamie Simon. My son, before the storm. Anyone notice a major difference between the image of the color of my son in the film and this photo? In the film, James Smith plays my son as a 5-year-old. They did it for the dialogue. The truth of the matter is that this part of the journey in our lives, my son was 14 months old. He was still in diapers. The hardest thing that I had to do every day as a homeless, working, single parent, child care. Think about it. When you've got young children, the biggest expense you got every month next to your rent or your mortgage is what? Child care. Let's talk about the reality of child care. You've got the au pair or the nanny that says 24/7 with the child, a licensed registered daycare center, maybe a dependable family member you can count on. At the bottom of that food chain, there's something called a woman who keeps kids. Now, y'all laughing. That's probably where your kids are right now. You know what I'm talking about. She's not licensed, she's not registered, but she provides a service that allows people like me to go to work. And the hardest thing that I had to do every day was walk out of that door and hear my little boy screaming in the class. And all I could say to her, Diane, I'll be back. I'll be back. Even though I was screaming and crying on the inside, because I knew those were words I'd never heard my father say to me. I was also crying tears of joy because I knew I was being true to my spiritual genetics and my promise that I made to myself as a 5-year-old boy. My son and I were together every single day. Going to the park, children's playground, San Francisco. You can look at that photo and show neither one of us looked particularly happy at that moment. I had just then, after explaining to him, I couldn't find any candy. It was candy or car fare. Life can be that simple sometimes. If I buy you some candy, then we got to walk home. And having to deny your child anything is painful. But we were together every day. The importance of that time to my son was so very eloquently expressed by him 25 years later when we were doing the Oprah Winfrey show. She asked my son, "What do you remember about this time in your life?" And what he said was, "All I remember is every time I looked up, my father was there." Now, we all know that the children live in multi-million-dollar houses that cannot say that about their father. He didn't know we were homeless. He did not need to know. He did not know that some of the times he ate and I didn't. It wasn't because I wasn't hungry. He didn't need to know that. He did not know that some of the times we both ate and got a hotel room, that was only made possible because I had just sold blood. He didn't need to know that. And I say he did not need to know that because that's what fathers do. The truth of the matter is sometimes the best father is a good mama. Somebody ought to say amen. Folks don't know it over here in Hawaii. Church started on Saturday. Sunday's just when we take the collective. My son clearly dreamed of one day walking in his father's shoes. That's a beautiful dream. All of the boys, all of the girls have that dream one day of walking in the moms or the dad's shoes. One of the hardest things that you're going to ever have to do with your child is to explain to them, you know what? You can walk in my shoes, but the journey's got to be your own. That would be one of the hardest things you ever have to do with your child. And speaking of journey, man, I have just flown 25 hours from South Africa to be in San Francisco for the very first day of filming. That's the very first day of filming. And you know what we're shooting that day? The end of the movie. That's Hollywood. We're going to shoot the ending first. This is the scene where Will comes down the stairs. He claps his hands a certain way. He squeezes his head like it's a melon. You can feel the energy coming through the screen, and there's no dialogue. That was all made possible because he said to me from the very beginning, I need you to be on the set every day of filming. His point was, playing you is going to be harder than playing Muhammad Ali. He goes on to say to me, you know what? Everybody knows Ali. They know the story. They know what happened. They know how Ali reacted. But nobody knows you. They took me some time to figure this out. But for 17 weeks, while everybody else was watching him, he was watching me. How you laugh. How you show tension. How you might express yourself. This guy had me down to the point that he had to sign my name to a contract in the film. Signs an exact replica of my signature. Man, if I ever have a problem with identity theft, I know who I'm going to look for. In my last book, Start Where You Are, I talk about hope. Hope is a beautiful thing. But hope will never be enough. You've got to have a plan. Hope and a plan. And your plan has got to have something that I call the C5 complex. Your plan has got to be clear, concise, compelling, consistent, and committed. You've got to have a plan. And when you're talking about doing something that you are truly passionate about, there is no plan B. 3 examples. Michael Jordan did not win 6 NBA championships with the Chicago Bulls because he was committed to plan B. That was plan A. Oprah Winfrey did not become the queen of all media because she was committed to plan B. That was plan A. Whatever your politics are, Barack Obama is not president of the United States because he was committed to plan B. That was plan A. Somebody needs to write this down. Plan B sucks. If it was any good, it'd be plan A. Plan B distracts from plan A. Ultimate example, commitment to plan B. I don't have a picture to show you, doesn't matter. We all know the story. David versus Goliath. David, a young warrior, faces Goliath, a giant of a man, covered in head to toe with armor, a spear in one hand, a sword in the other. What did David have? A slingshot, a smooth stone, and a plan. And for the biblical scholars in the audience, yes, I am aware David had 5 stones, because he knew